Causes of intimacy anorexia. I want to briefly go through the four major causes of intimacy anorexia with you. And the reason I'm doing this is because why did I get this way? How did I get this way? And again, you're not bad if you're anorexic. You now are informed. And if you can go from bad to informed, you can heal, okay? And so I want to inform you about what possibly could have happened that caused you to shut down your heart. To shut it down and to make safety more important than your spouse, to the point where it feels like you're more married to you than married to them. What causes that? Number one, sexual trauma. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. Now, I don't have a bone of intimacy anorexia. I don't. I mean, I've been working with this for many, over decades, but I don't have any intimacy anorexia. But I was sexually abused. And the way my sex abuse is I became a sex addict, an alcoholic, and drug addict. Okay, but some people don't go the active way, they go in the shut down way. Okay, and so they close down their heart. I'm not going to give myself to anybody. No one is ever going to take advantage of me again. No one's going to get all of me again because they hurt me. And intimacy equals pain. Okay, and so what happens is they create this kind of schemata in which they don't feel safe. And that's legit. They weren't safe. Okay, as a survivor of sexual abuse, I would encourage anyone who's experienced sexual trauma, get some counseling or come do an intensive. We'll deal with that. You can be free from the perpetrator's shame, guilt, and fear and all the consequences in the way you kind of set up. And there's other modalities that can really help you. But sexual trauma is a cause of intimacy anorexia, and it makes perfectly good sense. You know, I had a man in my office just recently who was sexually abused by a man, and it shut him down. And in this marriage, he could not attach until he started getting the tools and doing the work, okay? Now, and I've had women who've been sexually abused, and it makes sense why they would have difficulties with emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and sexual intimacy, okay? And there's a whole, you know, we could spend hours on sexual trauma, but that's a cause. Number two, attachment issues with the cross-gender parent. Now, if you're a guy, that means your mom either was unavailable, absent, like through death, through divorce, or emotionally unsafe. Could have been she had like a borderline personality disorder. She could have been just angry all the time. She could have been controlling or shaming. And so anytime you tried to reach out to her, it was safer for you not to be. Maybe she told all your secrets and you learned women aren't safe. Same with the man. If you're a little girl and you couldn't attach to dad, dad was distant, he was aloof, he traveled a lot, he wasn't present, he was angry, he was abusive, he was unsafe, he was volatile, he had mental disorders. And so you couldn't attach. And what happens when a little soul, now I'm talking about a child, a baby, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, who can't attach to mom or dad, it is not uncommon for them to conclude, because they don't have abstract reasoning, A, that they're bad, but B, that the opposite gender, you can't attach to them. Can't be done. It cannot be done. And so like the baby elephant who's chained to a little piece of wood about this big, put in the ground, can't pull that little thing out, but grows into this behemoth beast who could pop it without any effort. Doesn't even try to pull out the peg because they believe they can't. And so the anorexic believes in their heart, I cannot attach to the opposite gender. It is not possible. It is possible. It can be done. I've seen it done many, many times, but this is a cause. Number three, sexual addiction. Okay, I'm a recovering sex addict. I've been sober for over 30 years. I've helped tens of thousands of men and women get well from sexual addiction through books and materials. We have a website called sexaddict.com, one of the leading in the world. Okay, lots of books on that. So I'm not going to go into all of that because I have a whole 47 DVD training, 200 academic references on sex addiction at asat.org. Okay, if you really want to know that, you can. Are the books, The Final Freedom, would be a great primer for you if that's your issue. And you will have to deal with the sex addiction if you're an anorexic, because your sex addiction will feed your intimacy anorexia. But how this is a cause, maybe you grew up in a really good family, you're attached to mom and dad, life is good, you found pornography, you found masturbation, and literally what happens is When you have a sexual encounter, you get the highest level of endorphins and enkephalins and many other brain chemicals hits the prefrontal cortex of your brain. Boom! You get this fantastic thing called an orgasm, but you literally attach to whatever you're looking at. And so what happens is ring the bell, feed a dog, ring the bell, feed a dog, ring the bell, feed a dog. You literally attach sometimes 3, 5, 10, 15,000 times to an object world, and you attach to the object world, and you want only object relationships. Because in Boo Boo Mommy, or if it's a guy that you're fantasizing about, that being that you created in your mind doesn't demand intimacy for sexuality. Never gives you any negative feedback. Only tells you you're wonderful, you're great, you're huge, you're amazing, you're whatever. And you get this adoration without any work at all. And so you really attach your sexuality to a world that doesn't exist. And so when a real man or woman wants to be sexual with you and intimate with you, it's very scary and very different, because you know how to be sexual without intimacy, or intimate without sexuality. But sexuality and intimacy is really scary. And so sexual addiction by itself can cause intimacy anorexia. And if you have both, you have to get informed and get treated with both. I would recommend definitely an intensive if you can do that, or get some help. There's support groups for sex addiction. Call my office. We've got lots of help for that, lots of support. And if you're married to an intimacy anorexic sex addict, you've got kind of it could be really bad, because they could be cheating on you, they could be doing masturbation and pornography, neglecting you for years at a time. Okay, and if you have an intimacy anorexic in your life, and you haven't asked about masturbation and pornography, do. Because if that's underneath the intimacy anorexia, your intimacy anorexia is never going to get better, because they're already attached to the other person in the fantasy world who meets their sexual and intimacy needs without any emotional cost. So, very important. Number 4, role model neglect. And this evolved over time. I really saw that some people grew up where it wasn't just the opposite gender. They couldn't attach to either gender growing up. And mom and dad had like an anorexic relationship where there was no love. They slept in different rooms. There was no connection, no hugs, no kisses. And so here this soul grew up in a very sterile environment, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes even not even being hugged and touched. Never being told, I love you. I want you. I think you're an amazing young woman or young man. You're going to change the world. You're awesome. Sometimes I had a lady in my office just this week. Her dad was definitely the situation. And when I said, he failed to tell you that you were beautiful, that you're an amazing woman, that you got amazing talents, she started to cry just from me saying that to her, because it's never been spoken to her heart by her dad, okay, or her mom. I mean, this lady had to do both sets of healing on mom and dad in her intensive, because neither one attached to her. So when you have no attachment growing up, you don't presume attachment's even possible, or you have no framework or skills to even do it. So you do your best, and you marry someone who doesn't really demand intimacy, or if they do, they're kind of stuck because you're not going to give it.